Let's move on to our consensus at a consensus segment that we've been doing all week here. We are exploring crypto in the crypto industry's biggest themes based on conversations that were held at Consensus 2023 back in April. Here now to discuss the consensus at Consensus report is CoinDesk Web3 reporter Cam Thompson. Hey, Cam.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. So we're talking about your chapter here today, the way forward for DAOs. What were your key takeaways?
Yeah, so there were three key takeaways I found when listening to these discussions and writing this report. The first one is that DAOs should be decentralized. DAOs are defined as decentralized autonomous organizations, and there have been some cases where they haven't necessarily operated that way. There's this term decentralization theater that's thrown around a lot when a DAO brands itself as being decentralized, but doesn't necessarily operate that way. Also, in DAOs, with this concept of decentralization, it should matter in the good times and the bad. So whether it be putting forward a governance vote to bring some good to the DAO, or whether it be, punishing a member who might be a bad actor at the end of the day. So that was one takeaway. The second one is that there's a lot of voter apathy within DAOs, and some of the panelists were talking about how each member of the DAO should have one vote, and it should be a more equitable system. That way, one person isn't having a much larger say in what goes on. And the third takeaway is that, at the end of the day, DAOs should be, how do I say this? I guess geared towards solving real world problems with Web3. So rather than just trying to make money and capitalize off of some DeFi concepts or some hype around the space, there should be some real world problems that people are trying to solve. So whether that be crowdfunding, there's many use cases that people talked about, but those are the main takeaways that I found.
So Cam, you use the word should a lot. And I'm just curious, in your take, what is the actual status now, right? So yes, DAOs, they should be decentralized, they should be kind of not doing this sort of decentralized theater. But in your observation, what is the status quo? How far are we from that kind of ideal reality?
Absolutely. So in the report, I talked about a couple instances, when defining these takeaways. So in April, there was a vote within the Arbitrum Foundation, which was a vote to move 2 billion tokens into the DAO treasury. However, although this was branded as a vote, it turns out that the actors behind the Arbitrum Foundation actually had moved that money already, and they were just putting it up for ratification. So it wasn't really a vote at the end of the day. And that's where some of this decentralization theater comes into play. Another instance is that in February, there was a vote in the Uniswap DAO, and Andreessen Horowitz, which is a very large VC, has a large number of these Uniswap tokens that they were able to vote within the DAO, having more voting power than a lot of the holders. So there are quite a few instances where DAOs aren't necessarily decentralized nor address this voter issue. And it's something that people are working towards and are talking about. So, it's certainly an interesting time to be talking about this. I think there's a lot of questions that come up. So that's why I'm using should, because we're not really there yet, but I think people are trying to be for sure.
How do you think that these reports are going to help shape regulation?
Absolutely. It's an interesting question, Jen, because, a lot of these DAOs emerge from DeFi protocols, and DeFi does not want to be regulated. That's a large part of the DeFi ethos. It's pretty far away from, getting some regulatory attention. But I think that if people start to understand, why they're creating DAOs in the first place, why decentralization matters, that's a huge part of why people set up these organizations in the first place, to give token holders a voice to be able to help dictate the direction of these protocols. And, how to, I guess, wrap that up and make sure that people are still, acting in a decentralized manner. I think that, as we pursue down this path of defining more clear crypto regulation, DAOs will certainly be relevant, and they'll come up in conversations. And I hope that, they aren't just written off as Ponzi schemes or casinos. And there are some real conversations about how, these can be really useful tools for, solving real world problems. But, there's a little bit of a road to get there.
Decentralization theater, by the way, is what I was doing earlier at the beginning of the show with my whole...
We've come full circle.
Talk about bad actors.
One day people will get your bad actors joke, Lawrence, and
No
I
one
will
ever gets it.
here for it.
No
Cam,
one ever. Yeah, thank you.
Cam, thank you very much
Terry,
for joining
that's all
us
about
this
Terry.
morning.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
That was CoinDesk Web3 reporter Cam Thompson.